On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, the Big East is back to dominating the college basketball conversation. Two big stories out of the Big East this week. Number one, the story probably, it's got to be, is UConn goes to Omaha, beats Creighton. Creighton, I don't want to say Creighton has owned UConn, but I think Creighton fans and maybe UConn fans would say that Creighton has had the upper hand on UConn, despite UConn being the two-time defending national champions. Creighton's always played UConn pretty well, and Creighton plays well at home traditionally. And this was a game that Creighton was up by 14 at one point in the first half. UConn comes storming back. Liam McNeely has a monster game. The freshman has 38 points, 10 rebounds, was unreal. Really the entire game. He was incredible. But the big news was Dan Hurley chirping at the Creighton fans after the game. It was dollar beer night in Omaha. The beer was flowing. The Creighton fans were feeling themselves. Again, like I said, the Creighton fans are probably pretty confident about they're standing in the Big East. They were I believe in second place behind St. John's. But they also have played UConn pretty well. They're up by 14. Everything's going well. Liam McNeely says not so fast. And then Dan Hurley, as he's walking off the court, points to his finger and says, 2 rings, bitch. He doesn't say bitch. He says baldy. He says baldy. It would have been funnier if he said bitch. Actually, it wouldn't have.
It's hilarious.
Baldy is the funniest thing that he said. So we'll talk about that. Dan Hurley's a loose cannon. We talk about him often on the show, as is by design, I think, from Dan Hurley. I think this is all by design for us to talk about Dan Hurley. But he has positioned himself as the college basketball villain, and he certainly did in Omaha on this night as UConn gets a massive win and Creighton falls another game behind St. John's in the Big East standings. But wait, Kyle Neptune not dead yet. St. John's, a team that we're both very high on, and it is in it is the presumptive, I would say, Big East regular season champion. Still has work to do. Goes to the suburbs of Philadelphia, loses to Villanova last night. Had a shot to win it at the buzzer. It was a very frenetic, absurd basketball game. Villanova was taking just preposterous shots and making them. St. John's had the press flowing. They go on that 14-0 run and make a fun game of it. And in the end, they got a shot at the buzzer to win it and miss it. And St. John's goes down. St. John's is now, like I said, has work to do to win the Big East. And suddenly we have an interesting, compelling into the Big. I mean, it was always compelling, but it did feel like for a second there, St. John's was, in a position, and especially UConn beats Creighton. It was like, now if St. John's beats Creighton on Sunday, that might be it for the Big East regular season. Not so fast. Work to be done. Meanwhile, in the SEC, Kentucky sweeps Tennessee. Mississippi State loses a marquee game at home for the millionth time in the last few years. This is what Mississippi State seems to do. I'm trying my hardest to get on the Mississippi State bandwagon for Brandon Walker. It's hard to do, man. Every time they have a big game in Starkville, they come up short. Florida gets the win on the road. And then Alabama smokes Texas, and Auburn jumps out to the big lead against Vandy, holds off Vandy in Nashville, and it sets up the big 1-2 game, rivalry game on Saturday, the game of the year in college basketball. All that is coming to fruition on Saturday. Meanwhile, in the Big Ten, talking about conference title races, Purdue and Michigan State both trip up. Purdue, double-digit lead at Michigan, squander that. They blow the double-digit lead. Come up just Braden Smith almost won the game for him though. He was hitting disgusting shots down the stretch to the point that I thought the game winner that he threw up, the prayer that he threw up, I thought it was going in just because he was so hot down the stretch. But Michigan gets a big win over Purdue. Now the betting favorite in the Big Ten, and Michigan State. Tom Izzo going for the all-time winningest coach in the history of the Big Ten. He's now tied with Bob Knight. The stars had aligned, Tate. The Indiana Hoosiers, Bob Knight's old school, coming to East Lansing. Tom Izzo, all he has to do is beat the dog shit Indiana Hoosiers. The Indiana Hoosiers at home. And Mike Woodson goes zone, flummoxes the Spartans. They were flummoxed, Tate. They were flummoxed by the zone. And Tom Izzo has to wait a few more days to pass Bob Knight on the all-time Big Ten wins list for a coach. But yeah, the Big Ten race has gotten very, very interesting because Purdue and Michigan State take a big step back. Michigan is now in the driver's seat, but Michigan's schedule down the stretch, not the easiest in the world. Purdue's schedule, not the easiest. It's going to get very fascinating. Very, very fascinating. It does feel like a 3-horse race. I think Wisconsin has still has something to say, but Yeah, Michigan is back in the driver's seat in the Big Ten thanks to a big win at Purdue. Fun week of college basketball, a lot to talk about. I got fraud power rankings coming up too, by the way. But we're gonna open the show talking about Dan Hurley. Dan, as is tradition, as is becoming.
We told you it
season,
was coming. We said
as is tradition.
We said all season this is what it's been to our new listeners. We gave it to you on day one.
Let's get into it. All right, we're going to start with Dan Hurley. We're going to start with UConn. First of all, actually, I don't want to start with Dan Hurley. I want to start with Liam McNeely because Dan Hurley has a way of overshadowing his players, and sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes put the focus on the coach if things aren't going well. And I would say by UConn standards, things have not been going well this season. That doesn't mean it's a disaster and they're bottoming out. They're going to make the tournament. Their offense is, when it's humming, it's very, very good. They have great individual talent. Like Solo Ball and Liam McNeely are both just like pure born scorers that can just get you buckets at any time. So like it's not a disaster of a season or anything, but when things are up and down, having your coach be the lightning rod can be helpful because the players have not been as good as we expected them to be, and they're are a lot of scenarios where I might want to criticize UConn players, and then I find myself just being locked in on whatever Dan Hurley is up to. So in that way, it's helpful. But on a night like this, I would say it sucks for Liam McNeely when you go on the road and have 38 points. He played against St. John's, but this is his second game back in the new year, I think.
Yeah,
like over a month.
He played January 1st. Before that,
the last time I remember Liam McNeely balling out, and again, I don't watch every second of every one of these games, so I will be transparent and say I'm not watching every second of UConn. But the last Liam McNeely game, quote unquote, where he was, showing what he can do was Gonzaga, in December, I think.
Yep.
I think that was in mid-December. So it's been 2 months since we've had a marquee Liam McNeely performance. This was certainly it. And yet all anybody wants to talk about is Dan Hurley. And I'm not saying that I'm not confused as to why we only want to talk about Dan Hurley, but that kind of sucks for Liam McNeely because he was so professional is how I would put it. That's what impresses me about him. And for a 5-star freshman on the 2-time defending national champions, it is surprising how under the radar he's been a little bit this year. Now, of course, the ankle injury hasn't helped. UConn isn't quite as good as we thought. McNeely, was it against Dayton? I forget. He had one game in Maui in particular that was very bad. I think he might have gone scoreless. I'm not confused as to how he got here. But it is interesting that you're watching him in this game against Creighton, and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about this guy. How do you forget about the 5-star freshman that's on the 2-time defending national champion, and what other scenario would you forget about him? So I was encouraged by that. I was excited about that because he is so good, and he is so good in a way that is just under control. And the word that just kept coming to mind as I was watching it was professional. It was like he's not rushing anything. He's playing within himself. He's, he gets a step on his defender, and so often freshmen beat the primary defender, and they just kind of put their head down and bulldoze their way to the bucket, or they rush the shot because they're like, I've done the work to get past my primary defender, so it's kind of over now, and I'm just going to go get the easy bucket. And then they get to the college level, and it's a little harder to do it. And he does that, but then he's patient after getting past the primary defender, and he's just got I don't know, that's always the stuff that stands out to me is when freshmen can control their pace and can control the flow of the game, and they aren't just going balls to the wall. And he's certainly that, and the way he went about the game was just surgical, clinical, professional. 38 points. It felt like you were watching an NBA player playing against a bunch of college players, and he was the best player on the floor, and UConn gets a massive win. And suddenly you look at UConn's schedule, by the way, and they got St. John's in the Garden, but a lot of winnable games are left. I think they play Seton Hall twice. I think they still have Seton Hall twice on the schedule. Let me pull it up.
They do.
Actually.
They have Seton Hall on Saturday and then Seton Hall to end the year.
They have those are two gimme wins. What's the rest of the schedule?
Yeah, so they
go to the Garden, but
Seton Hall, and then they have Villanova at home, which should be a win.
Yeah.
They have Georgetown at home, should be a win. They have Marquette at home, big game, projected to win, but that's a big game, and then Providence.
So what I'm saying is this was a massive win because this might get the ball rolling for UConn as the calendar turns to March. And, yeah, I think the ultimate test for them will be going to St. John's, going to the Garden, playing St. I assume it's in the Garden. I guess there's a chance they're playing that on St. John's campus, but I would assume that game's going to be in the Garden. You get that win against St. John, like you're really cooking at that point, and maybe we get the ball rolling. But this one was a massive win that kind of went under the radar because Creighton's only ranked like 24th, UConn's unranked. I think if you're not paying that much attention to the college basketball landscape, that might not have jumped out to you as a big game, but it was. And tip of the cap to Liam McNeely.
And I will say, so I heard from some of our UConn fans a couple weeks ago. We had kind of not trashed, but said that UConn is very much underwhelming this year as to what Dan Hurley wanted them to be. Dan Hurley had said they were going to be. They pointed out, hey, when Liam McNeely plays, they had won 7 in a row.
Yeah.
Up until, and then the St. John's game, now Creighton. So with Liam McNeely back, they have won now 8 of 9 with their one loss being to St.
John's. Yeah.
Do you see now that he is back and returned, like I'm talking all the way back until Maui was when they were losing games. Their rough stretch was without Liam McNeely.
Sure.
Now that he has returned, I think they're a projected 8 seed right now. Is that a dangerous 8 seed for you?
Yeah, I guess it'll depend on the matchup. If they get the 8, if they're like the 8 seed with the 4th 1 seed, like if
they're going to be a scary name.
Yeah.
If you're a 1 seed and in the second day of March Madness, you've got to go up against the 2-time defending champ with Dan Hurley there, controlling the
But
refs.
I also this is a trap I fall into often with the NCAA tournament is the scary 8 seed.
Yeah.
You get excited about them beating the 1 in the second round, and then they just lose to the 9. They just lose in the first round of the 9.
Can we get?
And you're just like, oh my God, they're gonna beat. Oh my God, is UConn gonna beat Duke in the second round? Oh my God. And then they just lose to like Gonzaga or whatever in the.
I think it's time that
round.
we've officially written off North Carolina, which we'll talk about. But North Carolina is not in the tournament.
They're
That'd
out of
be
the
a nice
tournament,
little 8-9. Maybe we could get a little UConn Arkansas 8-9 for the scariest matchup.
Arkansas is not getting a 9.
What
dude.
do you mean?
There's no way.
They're hot.
No way.
Their season's been turned around. But continue.
UConn. Well, I think the what I said about the schedule, like if they start racking up wins late, they might get bumped up to the 7. They might get on the 7 or the 6 line. But yeah, I don't know, man. UConn fans are. I think you got the
2 rings, Mark. What do you? 2 rings.
UConn fans are. UConn. I just want to just real quickly sidebar the East Coast people, the sports fans, have the whole attitude of like we're assholes and we don't care that you think we're assholes and that's our whole MO. They care deeply. They care like the Philly. That's their little the Philly fans. That's their little like nobody likes us. We don't care. That's their little tagline thing. They care immensely. They care greatly about whether you have good things to say about their Eagles or whether you think that their way of cheering for their team is the correct way or whatever. I don't know, man. UConn fans are the we don't give a fuck if you hate us, dude. We're the fucking champs. And,
sounds like you care.
And what they're going to tell you that every day, as often as possible, that they don't care, and they do care. But no, I don't know. I think I've been pretty fair on UConn. I've never said they're garbage or trash or whatever else. I mean, they're very clearly not as good as they've been the last 2 years. But yeah, I still don't think they're good enough to win a national championship. That doesn't mean that this is like a lost season and they're it's going to be a failure of a year. They're not going to win the Big East. They could win the Big East tournament. They could go to a Sweet 16. Hell, I could see them in the Final Four, sure. I don't think they play defense. I don't think they play good enough defense. But yeah, they are going to be a very scary matchup because the offense is still very hard to guard. Like the actions and everything are elaborate, and they keep bodies moving and they're setting screens and they have counters to every action they have. But then they also have individual talent. You don't know where it's coming from, and it's easy to be like, all right, Liam McNeely, you're their guy. We're gonna throw everything we have at you, and then that's when solo ball is probably gonna go off. And they have a ton of weapons. So yeah, it would be a nightmare matchup for teams, but I could see I fall. This has nothing to do with this UConn team. It just has to do with that. That is a classic trap that I fall into is like the 8-9 game, and one of those teams you're like, oh my God, they could give the 1 seed a great game, and they just don't even get out of the first round. But I don't think UConn's going to be an 8 or 9. I think they're going to play their way to a 7.
Looking at what they have down the stretch, they're going to win a lot of these games.
Yeah. And yeah, they when McNeely is playing, they're a much better team. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that Like, let's not forget they did lose to Colorado on a neutral court.
And that's my thing. So UConn.
I know that was early in the season, but
you
like,
can
that
be
happened.
upset, and you can say that you lost, Villanova, Creighton, those games without McNeely. Don't move the goalposts on us either, though.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of the season, it was Dan Hurley and the UConn fans saying, you don't put us at 1, you put us at 3, that's disrespectful. Well, now we're talking about, are you guys going to be a 6, 7, or 8 seed? So it has been an underwhelming season.
Sure, yeah. But they can salvage it, dude. Yeah, that's a lot of winnable games down the stretch. You get like Marquette at home in March. That's an opportunity for a big win. But anyway, enough about that. Yeah. Let's talk about Dan Hurley. Let's talk about the antics. So Dan Hurley, I'm sure everyone saw, but if you missed it, Dan Hurley basically after the game was just waving at the Creighton fans, like saying goodbye, taunting them a little bit. And then he's walking through the tunnel, and the one clip that everyone is laughing at basically is he's pointing to his ring finger, and he yells, 2 rings, Baldy. And Dan Hurley is a bald man, is he not, Tate?
Yes, he is.
So, what? What?
But
what?
you know.
What?
Like, that's the greatest insult.
Does that make it hurt more for the bald guy that you have another bald guy? Was Dan Hurley being funny here?
It was like a bad.
It was funny on purpose. I meant it was hilarious. But I mean, was he being funny on purpose? Was he like, I'm gonna call a guy even balder than me? Is it like, like if you called someone fat?
All right. Well, I was gonna make a good. My point is this: every time we talk about Hurley's antics, all right, everyone get your laughs out now.
I got your dumb ass.
Every time Hurley has become a villain this year, we had him in Maui where he basically lost them a game, and then he turns around and he says, "Yeah, but their player didn't high point the basketball and it was a half-ass."
That's right.
box out."
That's right.
It's like he's an asshole, but then he does something so ridiculous that pulls me back in. He says, "Hey, I'm the best fucking coach in the sport. Don't turn your back on me." And then he goes in afterwards and he says, "I just wish the camera was on the other
coaches." Yeah.
This was a prime example of, I think, walking out and saying 2 rings is the douchiest thing I've ever seen an elite coach do. But then he called a bald guy bald as he's bald.
So funny.
Back.
So funny. As far as Hurley's antics go, this doesn't bother me at all. I do think it doesn't.
What?
I don't think it doesn't bother me at all. I think it's fair play. I think he's taunting the fans, and I.
Stop,
dude. Him crying about the Maui Invitational is way worse. Him basically saying we'll never play in a 3-game or we'll never play in an MTE again. Way worse. Him doing the I'm the best coach in the fucking sport. Respect me. Suck my dick. Way worse. I think him chirping at fans that were chanting "fuck Dan Hurley" and it was Dollar Beer Night and they were chirping at him. He chirps back. I don't really have that much of a problem with it. I would prefer my coach not do this. Like if Jake Diebler made a habit of this, I would be like, Jake, can we not? And especially like I said earlier, when Liam McNeely's balling out and you're stealing the headlines because of this shit, like I would prefer you to, put a light on your player, that your freshman that just had 38 points. But I don't know, it was pretty funny. But it's also I think Dan Hurley believes that winning 2 national championships has earned him the right for the rest of eternity to tell everybody to suck his dick. And I guess in some way, as a guy who has not won 2 national championships, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I would say that that's not the case. I would say that at some point you have to stop living in the past, but I guess he would argue it's not the past, it's the present. He's the defending champ. He's the current national champion. But I just sit I see a timeline where if Dan Hurley misses the tournament for 20 straight years and he gets fired from UConn and he's a homeless man living in a gutter, he's still just like, hey,
homeless guy,
hey, 2 rings, bitch, and he's just for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I got a couple questions for you. One, can you name another elite coach in this sport that even in your wildest dreams you could see doing that?
No, but I could 20 years ago.
Really?
I could see a lot of coaches doing this 20 years. Yeah, dude. This was Dan Hurley's just like a throwback guy. This was the norm in college basketball.
I can't disagree more. I think that, so for example, the biggest win this season, if you were to say the biggest win, someone who needed it, would be Coach Kyle going to Rupp. That was huge. What did Coach Cal do after that game? It was almost more cocky and more like a better story that he just shut his mouth and everyone knew.
Yeah.
Everyone knew Coach Cal wanted to drag his nuts across the other fan base.
Right.
But instead he was just like, hey, it's just another game.
Listen, I'm not defending Dan Hurley. I'm saying he's a necessary evil. I think we need these characters in the sport, and the fact that he did win 2 championships is a good thing. That the guy who's doing this is coaching an elite program. The Baldy thing is hilarious, and
I love it.
I don't get me wrong. I'm laughing at him more than I'm laughing with him, but I'm saying I'm enjoying laughing at him.
So what goes around does come around, right? If you're Dan Hurley, do not cry foul when you guys get beaten, maybe the first round this year, second round, whatever it may be. You are going to get mocked.
Yeah.
Do not go to that podium and say, win with class. There's a chance he does.
I know, there is a chance.
There's a chance that he says you need to learn how to win with class when the other team goes like this to him and middle fingers him.
That's what I said to Brandon on Mostly Sports, is that I love this arc that Dan Hurley, like, he's always been this way, but I think it stands out more this year because they aren't the juggernaut that we've known them to be the last couple years. They're just a good team. They're just a run-of-the-mill good basketball team. There's nothing particularly special about this UConn team. So Dan Hurley acting out and having the bravado, you know, on the one hand, like I said, you are the current defending champion, but on the other hand, like, you're not really running the sport right now. It's like Auburn and Duke and Bama are the best teams. So like it kind of stands out a little bit more. So I like it. I think it makes the sport interesting and fun. But like when he does this shit, when he's calling for the Maui Invitational to, you know, like, everybody stop going to the Maui Invitational, too far, get out of here. When you're you know, like staring at refs and doing like and calling out, and then like you said, when he called out the other player and the
he didn't high point it.
Yeah, didn't high point it. Shitty box out. Like, all that shit is too much. But this, like, chirping at fans that were chirping at you, I like it. The only thing is, I want, at some point, I need the pushback. I need another coach to step up and chirp at him.
And he will cry about it.
I want it to be Rick Pitino so badly. When they play in the Garden, I want Rick Pitino to beat him. I want Rick Pitino to pat him on the head in the handshake line and say 2 rings, Baldy. Because Rick Pitino's got 2 rings, and I want Rick Pitino to be like, 2 rings, Baldy. He slap him on the butt, and I want it to. That's. And then that fires up Dan Hurley, and then he does something. We just got to get more wrinkles to the story.
It would be
fun
fun if there was a back and forth.
Because right now he's got no adversary. He's just like, he's taking on everybody. He is a drunk at the bar who's just looking for a fight, and he's just going around hitting this guy, and then he runs over here, hits this guy, and at some point we need Dan Hurley to lock in on one adversary. Or like we need someone else to come into the bar and take care. We need the bouncer to show, you know.
You're right.
We got to like develop the storyline a little bit, because right now Dan Hurley's just a loose cannon, and it's very funny, but like, where is it headed is what I want to know.
I love that idea. I will say the perfect analogy to me is he is the Dave Portnoy of college basketball right now. Like, Michigan won the title, and Dave wore that crown all year when he's like, we're still the champ till we're not the champ anymore, as Michigan's going, 7-5. UConn is the 2-time defending champ. UConn is also light years away from winning a national championship this year, and he's still walking around with the crown on his head.
Yeah. So what happened? Yeah, you're right. Like, what will happen?
Like, everyone knows they're not that good, but he's acting like, hey, that's not how you talk to the champ.
Yeah. And UConn fans will tell you that that's what makes them good, I guess, is that the fake it until you make it type attitude, where if he's carrying himself like he's still the champ, then does that bleed into the locker room and the players' confidence? And they're like, yeah, we are the best team in the country, and you want your guys believing they're the best team in the country. I do know that UConn fans love them. I would push back on the idea that, like, every time you have a coach who's an asshole or rough around the edges, or just what is a Dan Hurley type, but it doesn't have to be exactly in that personality, but just like a controversial guy who's coaching your team. Every fan base says if he was your coach, you would love him, and I think that's a cop-out. That's not true. That's just not, like, I wouldn't want I'm being honest, like, I would not want, of course I would want the win.
Yeah, you want the wins.
Yeah, the UConn fans are going to hear me say that, and they'll be like, oh, okay, well, good. I bet you enjoyed not making the tournament then. I bet you're telling me you would rather not make the tournament than win back-to-back national titles? No, I'm telling you I would rather win back-to-back national titles with, like, not an asshole. I would rather do it with a guy who doesn't fucking suck. But at the same time, UConn fans love him, and he does embody that whole ideal of North that area of the country loves guys like that. And he's from that area of the country, so it all works.
I have one more question for you, and it comes from your playing days. Lead by example is something that I would say. So when you think of like roughneck, hold people accountable coaches, you think of Dan Hurley, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he is the one that will. What he yelled at someone earlier in the year when he was like, "You didn't win shit. Like I've won shit. You haven't won shit." If his team followed his lead and acted like this, would he not be the first to choke him and throw him up against the wall?
I don't know.
Like, you can't be the coach.
I don't know. I don't know if he would. I don't know. I
Really?
think if the UConn players were walking on, I would. Yeah. Like if I was the coach, I would. But I don't know if Dan Hurley would. I think Dan Hurley likes that.
So Liam McNeely. So a referee calls a foul on Liam McNeely, and Liam McNeely gets teed up, loses a game in Maui, and then gets teed up in another game for saying, "Hey, don't you turn your back on me? I'm a fucking lottery pick, you bum." He kills him.
I think Dan Hurley would push Liam out of the as he's yelling at. He'd push him out of the way, and then he would motherfuck the ref. Yeah, I don't know that he would, dude. I honestly don't know that he would. I think that like this is what he is and what he loves, and I don't know.
I love the fire. I
hear what you're saying, but I don't. I don't know. I don't know.
I actually think it all comes.
I'd have to think about it because I get the feeling that he would love that from his players.
I think this is the one that
I agree with you. I think if I was coaching, I would hate it, but I think that's what makes him different. Is he's just like he sees losing your temper as like good competitive fire.
Yeah, you don't like
that's
to
what
lose.
you want. Yeah, you hate to lose. You just fucking hate it so much.
I don't know why this one set me over, but the 2 rings to the fan.
2 rings, Baldy.
It has to be like, dude, I'm getting paid millions of dollars. I am the 2-time national championship. I just went into your dollar beer night and beat you guys. This is too much for me.
Yeah,
But then he gets me right back because I love Baldy.
2 rings and I'm the best coach. That's I don't know. You've earned the right to. I would. I don't know how I feel, man, because I guess technically I don't have a problem with it, but yeah, I just keep thinking like if this was my coach, I would be like, yeah, this is a clown show. Let's lock it up a little bit more, but at the same time, the results speak for themselves, and
all I want then is
and yeah, if you do win the championship, you earn the right to chirp. So
I'm just calling my shot now that I want to discuss when he loses and someone does pat him on the head or something. When he does a press conference and tells everyone else they need to win with class.
All right.
I want an apology.
All right. Put a pin in that, Cody. Get the clip ready. Get the clip ready for when that happens. Yeah, but to your larger point, and then we can move on to something else. I do agree that this is not something that is common with elite coaches. Mm-hmm. So that does stand out a little bit. But being a loose cannon, being a coach of a great team at a great program and being a loose cannon used to be one and the same back in the day. That used to be the norm. Just, yeah, losing your fucking mind and being a great coach was that used to be what being a great coach was. But the chirping at the opposing fans, yeah, I can't remember that happening as regularly as it does with Dan Hurley. But he goes to the beat of his own drum. So, what else? The St. John's losing to Villanova last night. So first of all, Villanova is playing much better, and Kyle Neptune's not going to get fired, I don't think, which is kind of sad because I think Villanova fans are ready to move on from him still. Has he done enough to save his job? I don't really know. He's done enough to not get. I think he's done enough to not get fired midseason. Crazy. He's done enough to not get fired. But you said
he has to make the tournament, and he's not making the tournament. But now he has gone from they were so bad to now they're competitive.
Yeah.
That he's safe again?
I don't. What is this? Year 4 for him? Year 3? This is year 3. He's basically been 500 in 3 years. Has not made a tournament since he's been there.
Can you go 3 years in a row without making a tournament?
I feel like that's enough to get fired. But I do think at this point he's not getting fired in the middle of the season like we thought. I circled that DePaul game last week as the one that he loses to DePaul, and it was setting up to be that way maybe because they snuck out that win against Providence, and if they hadn't won that, they're going in with what, a 6-game losing streak against DePaul. It was setting up. It was right there, and then they lose to DePaul. Maybe it would have happened, but I think he's done enough to not get fired in the middle of the season. I think we'll see what happens after the season, but in the meantime, they beat St. John's. Villanova does, hitting just absurd shots down the Eric Dixon one with like.
It was a bad shot.
Like 2:30 left. At the end of the shot clock buzz, there was like 2:30 or 3 minutes left. That was fucking bonkers. Dixon came on late and played really well. Woogo Poplar was. He had John Fanta saying he was Woogalicious. What does that mean?
It's a good one.
I don't know, but
Wooga's a great name.
Wooga was getting to the rim and dunking, and then Fanta was like, Woogalicious. I was like, I don't know what that means, John, but I love it. Woogalicious. So St. John's loses. They have the shot at the buzzer to win it. They miss. They were. I think they hit like a 10 or 11 threes in this.
They hit
game,
11, but they shot like 37.
A million. Yeah. I'm not selling any St. John stock is what I'm going to say. And here's why. They lose to a not great Villanova team in a spot where St. John's has just been anointed. It feels like in an ideal situation, they seize the moment. They look around the landscape of the Big East. They say, this is our time. We're going to now step on the gas as we approach the finish line, sprint through the finish, win the Big East going away. And then they immediately trip up at Villanova, and that might be cause for concern. I'm going to tell you why I like St. John's in the NCAA tournament, though. Yes, they can't shoot. That's a problem. That is a very serious problem. Even though they hit 11 threes, like you said, they shot a fuck ton and missed a lot. And that is good. That is going to be a problem in the tournament. When you watch St. John's play, especially when they're down, it feels like you're watching an NCAA tournament game in the sense that just they thrive in chaos. It feels like when you think back on some of the classic NCAA tournament games, and it's the favorite team, their assholes get tight because there's 5 minutes left and they're down by 3 and they were favored to win by like 16 points. And now all of a sudden there's just like the ball's just bouncing around everywhere and the underdog is just causing chaos, and like the press is the other team's just throwing the ball over the gym, and that's kind of what happens in the NCAA tournament, is just like the emotions of it all just snowballs. I mean, the great example would be Virginia against UMBC that they lose by 20, and if they played that game on a neutral floor, in mid-December, Virginia wins 99 times out of 100 probably, but all the factors at play just led to this snowball effect of like Virginia panicking and UMBC capitalizing on that. That's how St. John's plays, except they're not going to be the underdog. And when you're watching that, they did it to Creighton at home when they were down big and they came back against Creighton. They did it last night they go on a 14-0 run. I know they don't win the game, but when you watch like those stretches of St. John's basketball and you see how comfortable they are with the chaos, I think that translates very well to the NCAA tournament, because the NCAA tournament will throw chaos at you, and St. John's brings the chaos. And I think when they're playing, I don't know what seed they're going to be. What are they forecasted to be?
They were a 3 last night.
So they get in a situation where they're an underdog. I'm going to love St. John's in the NCAA tournament. It's just a matter of whether they can get there or whether they're going to go like 2 for 25 from the 3-point line in one of these games. But I don't want to say that like this was good for them that they lost. It wasn't. They should have won the game. This is, Villanova's not a good team. I want to see St. John's. I'm very high on them, and I want to see them win a game like this to solidify my confidence. But that 14-0 run was like, oh my God, this is who this team is at their best, and this is something that teams don't see a lot of. So like when you're going up against them, you're like, fuck, this is something we haven't really seen a lot of this season. And 2, as the emotions, again, of the NCAA tournament, and you're looking up and there's 4 minutes left and it's a 1-point game and St. John's is still full court pressing, and you have like all these there's another game coming up after your game, so the fans of the other 2 teams that are about to play after you, they're now getting into the game and they're oohing and on with every turnover, and they don't care who wins. They're just like all in on the chaos. The emotions of that whole scene can swallow teams alive, and I think St. John's thrives in that. And that's just I felt like I was watching like an NCAA tournament game last night, because Villanova was, to their credit, they were hitting just crazy shots and taking them with confidence. But then St. John's is pressing and Villanova's losing their marbles a little bit. And it was just a chaotic game. And I was like, this feels like you're watching just an absurd NCAA tournament game. And I think St. John's is going to love that.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about on our last show teams that are fun to watch. I know there's teams that put up a lot of points, blah, blah, blah. There is no one more fun to watch for me than watching that 14-0 run, that type of press where it's chaotic, and then the other team might be turning it over. They might be taking bad shots. St. John's come back the other way, passing the ball well. That is awesome to watch. I am concerned because both teams, St. John's and Creighton, knew that this Sunday leading up was going to be a huge game. St. John's had a one-game lead. They both had one game that they were supposed to win this week.
Yeah.
Creighton hand wrap gifts them a loss, and now St. John's has a 2-game lead, basically nullifying Sunday's Creighton game.
Right.
Meaning like, hey, guys, if we just handle our business, Creighton can beat us and we will still win the Big East. Going on the road and playing a team that you're supposed to handle and losing that game, I can't overreact because everyone loses a game they're not supposed to win. That was a bad loss.
It was probably a bad loss, yeah. By the way, I'm looking at it. The game I was thinking of was Xavier at home when they forced over. They were down by a lot, and I think I said Creighton earlier.
Yeah, you did.
So I want to correct that. It was the Xavier game is the one I was thinking of when because they're obviously playing Creighton. I was getting excited about them playing Creighton this weekend when they were down by a ton and they forced overtime and then they beat Xavier. But that was again like another example of just St. John's bringing the chaos. Yeah, it was a bad loss, but if you want to be optimistic about St. John's, as I continue to be, every single one of their losses is one possession and comes down to the last second. Every single game that they've lost. I don't know if that helps or hurts because they find themselves in a close game in the NCAA tournament. Do we trust that they can pull it out? Because how many close games are they winning? So they beat Xavier that goes to overtime. They win that one. Providence. I'm looking at they beat Providence by 2 twice now. The UConn game was kind of, yeah, I don't know. Maybe shit. Now that I'm looking at it.
Did they lose close game? Are they a close game?
Oh no. Did they blow the close games? But yeah, that Sunday's going to be great now. I mean, Creighton
Garden, it's going to be fucking awesome. Creighton was think about being on Creighton. You wake up the following morning after your loss. You no longer control your destiny. You're like, oh, everything's taken out of you. You now have a chance to become the first place team in the Big East on Sunday.
Yeah.
You gave them a chip and a chair. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. What else? SEC, Kentucky sweeps Tennessee. Tennessee can't. I mean, just a broken record with Tennessee, man. I'm a broken record. I'm like, just when you want to believe in them, they go, what was it, 3 for 20 from the 3-point line, something like that. Can't shoot, throwing bricks all over the place. Yeah, it's you. Every thought Tennessee is a finished product to me. Like as a takesman, as a college basketball takesman, I think I'm done with my Tennessee take. Like I don't have anything else to add. Every thought I have about this Tennessee team, I've already shared. Nothing I've seen and really, I guess like the Florida game gave me pause for a second, but in the end, like they're just they are a team that plays elite defense. They can turn every game into a rock fight, and they love it when it happens that way. They are capable offensively. If there is 1 out of every 3, 4, 5 games, they put it together. Chaz Lanier is hitting shots. Zakai Ziegler is hitting shots. Milicic is the player we think he should be. Jordan Gainey can provide a spark off the bit. Like every so often it comes together. You think they've turned a corner. You think like, okay, I see the vision with Tennessee, but they just simply cannot sustain it. And that, I mean, I don't know how you can believe in this team to win 6 games in the NCAA tournament, and yet I keep going back to like, I think they can win every single matchup they get, and that's confusing. And that's what makes it hard, is that I don't believe Tennessee can sustain it for 6 straight games, but I don't think there's a team in the country that if Tennessee's playing them, I'm saying to myself they don't have a shot here. Because they can absolutely beat every single team in the country, but can they do it 6 straight times? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean that's
confusing.
This game, I don't know. This is crazy saying, but Tennessee's a top 5 team in the country. Kentucky's a top 15 in the country. I could not be more settled in And Kentucky just set their program record for most top 15 wins. I think they have like 7 top.
That's crazy.
They might be like 5-1 against the top 10. And Tennessee's a top 5 team in the country. I would say very confidently neither of these teams have what it takes to string together 6 in a row.
Yeah.
Kentucky's defense just isn't good enough. And Tennessee, while they can, in a single game, frustrate you, shut you down, make it muddy, I don't think they can do it 6 times in a row. So these two teams, I don't know. Tennessee, people were talking about maybe a 1 seed still, 2 seed. Kentucky's going to be 3 seed, 4 seed. I don't think either of these teams can win a national title.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I will say though about Tennessee, Milicic has been playing well.
He's been substantially
since we shit on him since
he fucked me.
What was it like? He fucked you,
dude. That was a big. Not that it matters, but I got a little tip, big bet game for me, and then he went like 0 of 10.
Oh, that's why you got fired. Yeah,
that's why I hate him.
That's why you got fired up about him.
Yeah. But he is playing
better. I remember that show. I came in. I was like, oh yeah, one more stray thought about Tennessee. Milicic isn't as good as I was hoping he'd be. And then suddenly Tate was like, yeah, dude, what the fuck? This fucking
yeah, because I watched his ass warm up. I thought he was
whoa. Where's this passion coming from? Now I see. Now it makes sense. Yeah, Tennessee is. I'm out of takes. That's the only thing I would say. Is I've every thought I have about them I've shared a million times over. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to love, and there unfortunately is a handful of things I really really hate and I can't unsee.
They were projected a 1 seed coming into this week. They were talking about 4. Well, the one thing I do want to say, Titus, is go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I've gathered some feedback from our listeners on what we need to talk about more. The one team that they say we give zero respect to, because we're always talking Tennessee, we're always talking Kentucky, always talking Duke, is the Florida Gators.
Florida, yeah.
I agree. We don't talk much about Florida, and Florida right now would absolutely be a number 1 seed.
I thought you were gonna say Texas A&M, who is like kind of the forgotten great team in the SEC, because they're probably like the 5th or 6th best team in the league.
It's crazy.
But they are Final Four good. But they're like the 6th best. But yeah, Florida might be the 1 seed. Yeah, I think the SEC is getting 3 at this point. I don't know if Houston can do enough to overcome like the momentum the SEC has, and like you said, like you have a team like Kentucky that's not even in contention of winning the SEC. Has how many top 15, top 10 wins? Like every SEC team, every team at the top of the SEC's resume is just absurd.
They have 7 top 15 wins, and they still have Alabama, Auburn left on the schedule.
So if Tennessee's the one, like that's what's weird is like I do think they're deserving 1 seed, but like I don't really have faith in them winning. Really, I don't even know if I have faith in them making the Final Four, dude.
I agree.
It's tough because it's breaking my brain because if I see Tennessee, like when I go to fill out my bracket, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think Tennessee's a Final Four team, and I'm going to go to fill out my bracket, and every time I see Tennessee up against another team, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I could see Tennessee just like fucking them up and
yeah, you either need to put them in the Final Four first,
and then I advance them to the next game, and then I was like, oh yeah, I could see Tennessee fucking
exactly.
You could do that every single game, but also I don't think they're going to do it 6 times in a row. All right, let's move on to the fraud power rankings. I guess we could talk Big Ten quickly. Yeah, we should talk Big Ten quickly before we move on to the fraud power rankings. Michigan State blew it against Indiana, and Michigan State I think is we're not smashing the panic button yet. I would say this is less of a like Michigan State's fallen off a cliff situation. They've lost 3 or 4, I believe now. Excuse me, and they lose to a bad Indiana team that's kind of given up on the season, but suddenly, like, Indiana fans are so funny, man, because they're so done with Woodson, and I'm not saying that the beating Michigan State has made them buy back into Woodson. They continue to be done with Woodson, but they were so done with Woodson and this team. But then they haven't, even in that losing stretch they had, they had like, I don't know if this helps or hurts the case, but like they had Purdue. At Purdue, like not on the ropes, but that was a winnable game down the stretch. They could have won that game.
Lost to Maryland by
1.
1.
They should have won that game. They gave that game away. So there's like enough there where you're like, if we could just And then you get this massive win, the first ranked win for Indiana in a long time. They get a big win against the team that was at the top of the Big Ten standings. It was a top 10 team not too long ago. Suddenly Indiana fans are back to like, wouldn't it be funny if we just got hot right now? Wouldn't it be funny? like a week ago, they're like, we're gonna lose every fucking game the rest of the season. This team sucks. I'm done watching them. And now they're like, listen. I mean, I'm done with Woodson, and I don't think we're very good. But like, wouldn't it just be funny if what if we just got hot now? Anyway, I think Michigan State is. I think this is a case of water finding its level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is a case of like Michigan State suddenly not being as good as they were, or like I don't really see this as like what's wrong with Michigan State.
Right.
I see this as you're kind of the same team I thought you were all season. The schedule was very favorable. It's getting increasingly difficult. Now you shouldn't losing to USC, losing to Indiana, not great.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think those are good. I'm not like excusing those. I'm just saying like I think Michigan State was never as good as we were told they were in the first place. It was just that they were, one, at the top of the Big Ten, two, wearing Michigan State jerseys, three, the defense was really, really good, and the depth is there, and the rebounding is there, and all that. But the resume wasn't really there, and I think that you looked at the record and the program and all that, and you're like, this has to be a top 10 team, and I don't think they ever really were.
You've been on. I'll give you credit. You've been on the same narrative since the beginning, which was this is not a great Michigan State team, even when they won 13 games in a row. And I was saying, Titus, they haven't lost in the Big Ten. They're number one in the Big Ten. It's Michigan State. It's Tom Izzo. You were still saying, we'll see how it finishes. I mean, what's their best win looking at this resume? They beat Illinois at home by 2.
It was Illinois at home,
and that's
that was
it.
The game, and that was the ref game that the Illinois fans will tell you. That was the Underwood got a tech late, and you know,
that was crazy.
Yeah,
I would argue. I mean, I don't know what else on this. Yeah, you beat Ohio State and Columbus. You beat North Carolina. Those aren't bad wins, but they don't really have a crown jewel. Their resume is not that good, I would say.
Yeah. But I don't think that's a problem. I think what happened was coming into the season, Michigan State fans were like, we're not really sure what we have with this team. The season, the Kansas game, they looked not great at all. It wasn't really a blowout, but I forget what let me click on the box score here. The 3-point shooting. Yeah, they were 3 for 24. That was I remember coming out of that game being like, oh my God, dude, they're just throwing up bricks. And then they go to Maui and they go 2-1, and suddenly there's like a little bit of optimism. But then I'm scratching my head. As a guy who watched every second of every Maui game, I was like, they played Colorado and Memphis and North Carolina, and they beat North Carolina. But like, how good is this North Carolina team really? But at the same time, you know, I don't think Carolina was a fraud yet. So like, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see something here with Michigan. Maybe they're not going to be dreadful. And then like you said, they rip off a winning streak, and at a certain point you have to tip your cap.
Right.
But I never at any point thought this is an elite team, but they were winning games, and I did think the buy-in was there, and I thought the defense was there, and I think that the confidence was like building on itself, and I was like, you know, I could see them doing a little damage in March, and maybe going to the Sweet 16, maybe pushing it to Elite 8. If you want to buy the idea of Tom Izzo in March, fuck it. Maybe this is a Final Four team, and maybe they still could be. But like, this was never to me a special team. And I don't, and I think somewhere along the line around January, around the turn of the new year, Michigan State fans went from like, I wonder what we have here. We might not be all that great. This probably isn't special. Then they're like, oh shit, we're really good. Oh shit. Oh, we're gonna win the big. Oh my God, are we gonna go to the final? And like the expectations got carried away. And I think ultimately we should just turn the temperature down a little bit and just be like, yeah, this is an okay team. This is an okay team. We don't have to get too excited about them.
It's going to get really interesting soon too. They've lost 3 of 4, and none to great teams. USC, UCLA, Indiana,
and the Oregon win. They were getting destroyed. And Oregon just unraveled, but that was shaping up to be an Oregon blowout.
And so if you remember, end of January, we started talking like, hey, yes, they're in first. Yes, they've won a shit ton of games in a row, but it's going to get harder. They haven't gotten to the part yet where this is going to get harder. Here's what they have upcoming, Titus. At Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, Michigan, and at Iowa.
Yeah.
So if they've lost 3 of 4, I don't know. This is something I'm just wrong on because I was definitely drinking the Kool-Aid end of January. They're about to lose, 4 or 5 more games before the season ends.
Yeah. Which is probably what Tom Izzo wants, dude. Tom Izzo being 18-2 that's not Tom Izzo basketball. That's not what you want. You want to he needs some adversity. He needs his guys to he doesn't want his guys to be confident in January and February. He needs his guys to think they're dog shit. He wants to beat them down, right? And then right as March is coming along, start picking them up, start building the confidence, get them rolling at the right time. So I think this might work in their favor a little bit, but you're right. The schedule down the stretch is not easy, not easy, and we'll find out what they're made of. I don't think it's like. I don't think they're going to bottom out. They're still too good of a defensive team, and they're too well coached and all that. But yeah, they can't shoot the basketball. They're one of the worst shooting teams in the country, and that's unfortunately going to matter, and it is mattering. And Indiana goes zone, and they're just like fuck. Fuck. What do we do? I guess shoot threes and continue to miss them, and hope they start going in. But yeah, how funny is that Tom? I mean, it's objectively funny that Tom Izzo is trying to break Bob Knight's all-time Big Ten wins record. He has a very bad Indiana team that's kind of given up on the season with a lame duck coach coming in to the Breslin Center, and he loses the game.
The ghost of Bob Knight.
The ghost of Bob Knight, dude. He's gonna have to wait a little bit. Would it be how funny? Like, at what point? I love Izzo. I love Tom Izzo, but I also love laughing. And like, how many games in a row that they could conceivably lose like 5 or 6 in a row? Like how when does it stop being funny and you're like, all right, let's just get Izzo that win so he can get the record?
So
like,
they're going to be underdogs Saturday at Illinois. Then you've got Purdue coming in. Then you go to Michigan, to Maryland. If we're sitting here, that'd be 2 weeks from now. It could be March, Titus. Those are 4 games they could absolutely lose.
Dude, Wisconsin at home they could lose.
He breaks this record Thursday, March 6th at Iowa.
They could lose that one.
It's a month from now.
Iowa's got cold-ass white boys that can just get hot out of nowhere.
That's a month from now.
Yeah, it would be.
I want him to break this in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah. All right, fraud power rankings. Let's get into it and wrap up the show here. At number 5 on the fraud power, no honorable mentions this week. Let's just dive right into it. At number 5 on the fraud power rankings, Pitt, the Pittsburgh Panthers, a team that at one point was, I would say, comfortably in the NCAA tournament. Was a team that had we were talking about the ACC and how bad the ACC was. Pitt was one of the bright spots. Pitt was Duke at the top. Then it was like Louisville and Clemson and Pitt and North Carolina, and that was kind of the next group. And it was sort of like draw out of a hat which one of those 4 you think is the second best team behind Duke. I obviously we're biased and we have a personal slant here, Tate, but Ohio State loses at home to Pitt in a game we should have won, that we absolutely choked away. There's no other way to describe it. And at the time, it hurt. It still hurts, and it still haunts me. But I took solace in the fact that Pitt is a good team, and that is not going to be a bad win, right? Pitt's not a bad team.
For sure.
Pitt's going to be a tournament team. In the end, we lost in overtime by 1 to a tournament team. Not the end of the world. Pitt is sort of bottoming out right now. They did beat Carolina at home, which doesn't really mean dick anymore because Carolina is also bottoming out. But Pitt on January 4th, Pitt was 12-2 before. After beating Stanford at home. So they beat the 2 California schools in conference. So like it's not really the ACC part of the schedule. They played Virginia Tech in December to go 1-0. Virginia Tech is garbage. And then they play 2 home games against the California schools, which aren't really ACC schools. I don't really consider them to be ACC schools. And then once the ACC schedule, the old school ACC schedule started, Pitt has gone 8 or they've won 8. They've lost 8 of 10. They've gone 2-8 in their last 10 games in the ACC, including a 16-point loss at home to Virginia Tate. The Pitt Panthers were once upon a time a team that was comfortably in the NCAA tournament. They are comfortably out of the NCAA tournament. They have now lost 4 in a row. They just, as their season is unraveling, they lost to Carolina at North Carolina last Saturday. They lose the game by 1, the close game. And their season is unraveling. They're going to SMU. Opportunity for a good win. This is on Tuesday night. Opportunity to turn their season around. They lose by 20.
Yeah, they're done.
This is what Pitt is just sinking like a stone, and it's affecting us, and that's why I'm upset about it. And that's why I put them on the fraud power rankings, because I need the Pitt loss already hurt enough for Ohio State, and it just continues to hurt more every time I watch this team suck ass since we've played them, basically.
Yeah, honestly, I gotta give credit to Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg killed Pitt, if you recall. That first loss
yeah,
they
that's
had,
right.
They beat them by 30 at Cameron. Cooper Flagg quite literally, that's his
dunked on the 7-foot.
He caught a body.
One of the 7-foot twins.
And since then, they just have not been the same.
Yeah, Pitt stinks, and it's a bummer. So Pitt at number 5 on the fraud power rankings. At number 4 on the fraud power rankings, Reddit. The college basketball Reddit. So it has been brought to my attention. You brought this to my attention a couple weeks ago, but then, or maybe not even that. It was like a week ago. One of my friends sent it to me as well. There's an ongoing. What do you call it? A grid?
Yeah, I have it here.
It is like there's an ongoing.
It's a popular trend.
Explain what this is.
So it's not just on the men's Big Ten basketball. There's a lot of things. You can do it for the Browns. You can do it for the NFL, whatever. But basically, there's 3 columns, which are good player, average player, bad
player. Yeah.
And then there's 3 rows, loved by all the fans, fans are divided, hated by the fans.
Right.
So there will be 9 people selected. There will be a good player that's loved by the fans. There will be a bad player that's loved by the fans. Go on then. Okay,
so yeah, the Reddit is apparently they're going through and voting on the Big Ten players historically, right? Like that's my understanding.
Yep.
It's just like
way back. Yep.
So who was great player loved by fans?
So the first person selected, great player loved by the fans, was Robbie Hummel, 2008 to 2012 at Purdue.
Good pick. Robbie is a legend of the game, and he's also a very likable guy. You have a 10-second conversation with the guy. You're like, oh yeah, good dude, good dude.
You approve of that one?
Very good pick.
Good player, fans are divided. Zach Edey.
Okay, that seems fair. That seems, he was a polarizing guy, but he's undeniably a good player. The reason that I have college basketball Reddit on the fraud power rankings is that there is a category, bad player loved by fans.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share with the people who Reddit picked for bad player loved by fans?
Mark Titus, number 34, Ohio State.
They picked me. And you're saying to yourself,
great pick.
You're saying
that's a great pick.
You're saying to yourself, loved by fans. Yeah, isn't this what you want? Bad player? I mean, Tate, what the fuck?
So, what's your
supposed to take this as a compliment?
I think I texted it to you, and I thought you were going to be like, hell yeah, and you just weren't.
Dude, Chili's 3 for me 3-point champion, drafted by the Harlem Globetrotters, 2-time Big Ten champion, 2-time Big Ten tournament champion. People forget the first 35 minutes of my career, which is basically like a game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like if you say I played 35 minutes in a game. Yeah. That's one game. 8 points, 5 boards. I was 2 for 3 from the field, by the way. I wasn't just it wasn't like I was
66%.
66% shooting, 5 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals.
You think you should be in the average player category?
I think an argument could be made. I don't know, man. Bad player's tough. Bad player's tough. I didn't think I was that bad, is what I'm saying. I think I wasn't given enough an opportunity, is what I'm saying. I think I started my first 35 minutes. I was good. I realized I want to do enough. I want to help this team win. There's only one ball. You can't put a bunch of superstars out there together. So I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna eat some humble pie. I'm gonna let the other guys shine. Where I'm from, that's called teamwork. That's called being a great teammate. To college basketball Reddit, that's called being a bad player, I guess. I don't know, man.
A lot of people on this list in the average and good player category without national championship
appearances. Yeah.
No Final Fours.
Without Big Ten championships.
How many Big Ten titles did Connor McCaffrey win?
Is he on? What's he on?
Pat and Connor McCaffrey, average player. Fans are divided. Tominaga from Nebraska.
It hurts.
Get him in the gym. You're better than him.
It hurts. I'm excited. Love by fans is nice.
Today is average player hated by fans.
Average player hated by fans.
I'm afraid they're going to put Aaron Kraft on.
Kraft, yeah, maybe. But I don't think he was average. I thought Kraft was good.
And he also should be fans are divided.
Kraft was one of the best defenders in the country for years.
Yeah. So my biggest interest in 2 days, it'll be bad player hated by fans. At that point, you just gotta.
What if it's me again?
What do you do if like?
What if me ranting about them saying I'm a bad player?
switch you?
They're like, all right, well, fuck you then, dude. Bad player hated by fans now.
That would be the worst feeling in the world. Is like, hey, I played basketball 18 years ago, and I just won the bad player hated
by fans.
award.
No, I appreciate it. Bad player loved by fans. I guess that was my whole brand, right? That was the whole brand.
Quite literally.
Shout out to the guy, by the way, at the Ohio State game. I was watching the last night. We played Washington on Big Ten Network, and they throw it to Bardo, and I forget who the play-by-play guy was, but they throw it to Big Ten Network, and they got the shot of the two guys behind the desk, and then you're seeing the dude walking down the aisleway in between the two talking heads or whatever, dude wearing a Club Trill sweatshirt. And I said, hey, how about that?
Legends never die.
What is that, like 15 years ago, dude? 15 years ago. That was the guy who voted for me for bad player, I guess.
Loved by fans.
Yeah. That's I only focused on the bad player part. We gotta Chili's 3 from dude, I beat Sean Marion with the chicken finger in my mouth. How many guys on that list beat Sean Marion with a chicken finger in their mouth?
None.
That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. At number 3 on the fraud power rankings, the entire SEC. The entire conference. A conference that
it's gonna set the record for teams in the tournament.
That's going to have maybe 14 teams in the tournament, dominated the non-conference. This is the second time I've put the entire SEC on the fraud power rankings. You might remember last time I did it was when Archie Miller pointed out that the SEC
astutely pointed out
the SEC, despite being dominant in non-conference, was surprisingly just 500 in conference play. And we all saw that clip of Archie Miller, head coach at Rhode Island, pointing that out, and we said, "Oh, I didn't even realize that, Archie. Wow, great point." That the SEC is when SEC teams play each other, one team wins and one team loses every time. That's crazy. So then we flush that down. We digest that. We move on and we start watching more basketball. Sure enough, Tate, everybody's back to sucking off the SEC. SEC this, SEC that. The AP poll comes out. SEC has the top 3 teams in the country right now. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Alabama Auburn, Alabama, Florida. Those are the top 3 teams in the country. Everybody's back on the SEC. Karl Ravitch, though, against Texas, when Alabama was playing Texas in Austin the other day, Karl Ravitch steps in. He says, "Not so fast." Hey, everybody. And I didn't realize this. I didn't realize this was still a thing. Archie Miller pointed it out. I thought the SEC had improved since then. But then Karl Ravitch said, "Not so fast, everybody. Take a look at the SEC standings. The SEC is 82-82. They're still 500 in conference play. They despite everybody saying they've gotten better, they haven't.
What's all the hubbub about here?
Karl Ravitch says, "We know how dominant they were in non-conference season." This is just direct quote. The SEC, they were 185-23 since January 4th going into Tuesday. The SEC teams are 82-82. It's not as if 1 or 2 teams or 3, and then he stops. He just says they're 82-82. There's been no ability to pull away. There's no dominant group of teams. So despite everybody believing that this is the best conference, they continue to just be 500.
I will say, so I pulled up some of the other conferences. Give me a conference, Titus.
How about the Missouri Valley?
The Missouri Valley?
I want to see what they're at.
Right now, currently, in conference play, 86-86.
No shit.
86-86.
So they're just as good as the SEC.
I was going to say, as much as the SEC looks mediocre, the Big Ten, 120-120. So
they're 500 as well. I'll be goddamned. This is my favorite thing that's happened to college basketball in a long time. This is so fucking funny to me.
Do you think
this keeps happening?
Karl Ravitch isn't a dummy, right?
I think Karl Ravitch just was like shown a stat. I think Karl Ravitch, I don't mind the guy, but I don't think his heart is in college basketball. I think, frankly, this is an assignment that was given to him that he was like, I'll do it because I'm a company man, but like, I mean, pitchers and catchers just reported. My mind's on baseball. I'm just get me to the first pitch of opening day. Yeah. So I think he was just handed a stat and just read it and like
because Archie Miller felt for it.
Yeah, I think Karl Ravitch also just fell for it. I think this was actually worse than Archie Miller.
Really?
Because I think Archie Miller was like invested in. I think Archie Miller was given a note.
I think Archie Miller saw it on Twitter. That's why I think it's the funniest.
Well, I'm going to tell you why Archie Miller was better or less embarrassing because Karl Ravitch didn't just say the stat. Archie Miller just said the stat, and I don't know if like something was lost in translation, that like one of his assistants or like one of his managers gave him some stat that they saw on Twitter, and he just like misconstrued it or overheard. There's a good chance like one of the managers said to the other manager as a joke, like, "Did you see that tweet?" And then Archie Miller heard it and just like heard
out. Yeah,
I'm being devil's advocate here. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Karl Ravech did the thing where the 500 thing and downplayed the SEC because they're 500, and then he followed it up by saying there's no group of teams in the SEC. There's no group that's like standing out from the rest. Which makes no fucking sense, Tate, when you have the top 3 teams in the country, and you also have South Carolina, who's 0-10 in the conference.
Quite literally standing out from the rest.
There is so obviously a top and a bottom in the SEC. It's as pronounced as any conference in the country. Despite the SEC being deep and very, very good, there's very obviously a top, a middle, and a bottom with the SEC. So he took it one step further. Archie Miller just kind of said the numbers and kept it moving. Karl Ravech said the numbers and then came to a conclusion and then shared a conclusion that could not be more wrong.
Yeah, no separation.
But yeah, that happened again. And now I think me and you and everybody else in the college basketball world is locked in on this SEC stat that now this is now two instances, two high profile instances. Will it happen again at some point in the season? Will someone publicly point out that the SEC is 500 conference play again? I say yes.
I say no because the amount, like I'm looking at the tweet right now, someone tweeted it, the clip, and the responses are all, it will always be 500 within the conference because for every win, there will always be a loss. Thank you for pointing that out. Oh, shit. Like, now that is going public.
Now that we have the geniuses on the case.
This is not an interesting stat. It's just a fact. Every team will always be 500 in conference.
I saw a stat the other day that the teams that make the Super Bowl are 500 all time.
Wow.
That the Super Bowl participants are that'll blow your mind because you think that the Super Bowl, to get to the Super Bowl, you should be pretty good.
Should be better than 500.
But the teams that are playing in the Super Bowl, once they get there, they're only 500. It's crazy. Why is this happening?
Say that today so we can put you on the fraud list.
Why is this happening? At number 2 on the fraud power rankings this week, Blue Ribbon Yearbook. Those of you that have been tuned into the show for the entirety of the season, we obviously have a new audience now that football's over, but you might remember in the preseason, Tate and I took Blue Ribbon Yearbook to task because they put the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, a team featuring 2 top 5 picks in Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, 2 of the top recruits in college basketball behind Cooper Flagg. They both committed to Rutgers. This was a seminal moment in Rutgers basketball history. This felt like if this was the thing I kept saying was like if this was 2012, 2013, Rutgers would maybe be like a top 10 team going into the season. Blue Ribbon Yearbook said not so fast in their preseason. Blue Ribbon said Rutgers will finish 15th in the Big Ten. Tate.
Crazy.
Not even in the country. They'll finish 15th in the Big Ten. Ken Pom, the analytics guru, the guy that all the nerds of college basketball, the god of all the nerds of college basketball, he said, I believe, if memory serves, they'll finish 17th in the Big Ten. Not even in the country. If you put them at 17th in the country, I would have said that's pretty crazy. He said they'll finish 17th in a conference called the Big Ten. You and I saw this. We said, that's crazy.
Insane.
And now we fast forward to mid-February. Despite Blue Ribbon picking them 15th and Ken Pom having him 17th, those fucking idiots could not have been more wrong. Rutgers is 14th in the Big Ten.
Told you so. Idiots.
Rutgers is 5-9 in conference, 14th in the Big Ten, 12-13 on the season. So anybody who doubted Rutgers, shame on you. They are way better than we expected them to be. How sad is this, man? You saw it last night, I assume, that Rutgers loses to a bad Iowa team. Fran McCaffrey, by the way, was he crying in the postgame interview with Andy Katz?
I still don't understand it. Crying. That was your classic.
Listen, I'm a crier. I'm not against men crying. You know, you throw Wally on, I'll probably cry.
Yeah.
You know, like
right.
I think men expressing their emotions is a good thing, and I think we need more of it. I think like Chris Jones was crying every time the national anthem gets played in a football game. That's a good thing. I don't have a problem with it. I wasn't fully sure of I don't want to dunk on Fran McCaffrey too much because I just don't know the story. But like, was there something that I don't know? Was there?
I think he's clearly just going through it when it's like, hey, it's his job in jeopardy, and then. But ultimately, there should be, like we always talk about, should this be a court storm? Should it not? I think there needs to be a universal rule: no crying after beating under 500.
Yeah.
They beat a 12-13 Rutgers team.
Yeah.
It's been an ultra massive disappointment.
I think number one disappointment in college basketball this year. I think even despite like North Carolina,
I was gonna say Carolina's
Indiana,
the only one that comes to mind.
Indiana's up there. I think Rutgers is number one because I didn't know how good, bad, or otherwise they would be. I thought certainly at the very least they will be relevant. At the very least, I will be aware of when Rutgers is playing, and I will want to tune in. And I've reached the point where I'm just like, I don't care, man.
I still don't get it.
There's a better game on.
Because the thing is Harper and Bailey have both, in my opinion, lived up to expectation. Like they're both going to be top 5.
Yeah. No, I guess you're right. Like there's probably Iowa fans are probably calling for Fran's job at this point, and they've bottomed out. And I think there was some sort of expectation this year for them.
I think
they were supposed. I'm trying to think of what the preseason. They were supposed to be. Peyton Sandford's good, dude. He's going to be an NBA player. I think. He's a fucking scorer.
I think what it was.
I think he could play in the league, and yeah, I think we thought they were going to make the tournament in the preseason, right? And they've had some injuries, and they've stacked up a bunch of losses. So maybe it was just that. It was like it's nice to get a win.
I think the Big Ten money's coming into play here because actually looking back, this win propelled them into the Big Ten tournament field.
Oh, is that what it is?
So he just made the tournament.
They had lost 3 in a row. They beat Penn State not too long ago, but yeah, they're on a rough stretch. They were 12-4. They're now 14-10. Yeah, maybe it's just that, I guess. But I did not see that coming. I didn't see it. And then Andy Katz was choked.
I was gonna say they were both going at it.
I gotta rewatch that clip. Andy couldn't get his composure at all. He was like, I don't know if he was just having a coughing fit or whatever, but he was. No. You got Fran McCaffrey crying, and then Andy Katz can't get the words out. And I'm like, did I? Again, maybe I did. Maybe I missed a story that like something crazy happened at Iowa.
It was a classic case of like, if you throw up, I'm gonna throw up from seeing it. McCaffrey started crying. Katz is like, well, shit.
Yeah, I'm officially done with Rutgers though. That's the point of putting. That's the point of.
But what if they make the Big Ten tournament? Right now, 14th gets you in.
If they make the Big Ten tournament, they're going to play on the Tuesday, and they're going to lose in the first round, and they're going to play. They're going to tip off Tuesday at like 11 a.m. Central Time. I'm going to be doing mostly sports and then the Yak, and then by the time the Yak's over, they'll be bounced, and I won't have watched a second of it. That's what's going to happen. That's my prediction for Rutgers if they make the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, they would.
All right, at number 1 on the fraud power rankings this week, YouTube TV. You a YouTube TV guy?
No.
Okay, so this story might have flown under your radar. It did not fly under mine because I am a YouTube TV guy.
Mm-hmm.
And last night I get an email, and I'm going to read the email to you.
Okay.
Hi, Mark. With YouTube TV, our goal is to offer you the content you love, delivered the way you want it. Pretty good so far.
Good start.
Yeah. To make this happen, we enter into agreements with network partners to make their content available on YouTube TV. Oh, thank you, YouTube TV. I was wondering how your business worked.
Yep.
This is good. I like this. Probably an unnecessary email, but this is all good. As such, we've been negotiating with Paramount to reach a fair agreement that allows us to keep their channels, including CBS, on YouTube TV without compromising the value of our service. Okay. All right. I don't know why you're telling me this. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts, we've been unable to reach an agreement. Wait, what?
This just got ominous.
On February 13th, 2025, and then I had the Lloyd Christmas in the bathroom stall moment where I was like, looking at my watch, looking at wait a second. Wait, February, that's today. On February 13th, 2025, all Paramount channels, including CBS, will likely become unavailable on YouTube TV.
CBS?
Tate, do you know who has the March Madness broadcasting rights?
Yeah, I do.
It's CBS, Tate. Do you know what channel the Ohio State Buckeyes will be playing the Michigan Wolverines in a pivotal game for both teams on Sunday? You know what channel they'll be playing on?
What is it?
It's CBS, Tate. What the fuck, man?
How do you lose CBS?
What the fuck? Listen, I want to believe they're going to have a deal done. I have to believe. I have to believe it. I have to believe that like this is much ado about nothing. By the time this show comes out, by the time we post this podcast, hopefully, they figured it out.
It should be fixed by March Madness.
It should be fixed by now.
You might be in jeopardy on Sunday,
dude. Like March Madness. Obviously, I'm gonna lose my March Madness. If it's not fixed by March Madness, I'm gonna have found another.
Right.
Like I'm gonna have just canceled YouTube TV and figured something out. But I'm worried about Sunday because right now I'm working under the assumption like they'll figure it. It's like when your electricity goes out at your house, you don't really panic at first. You're like I'm sure it'll flip back on in an hour. But then once it gets to So I'm in that like hour. Once it gets to like, it's been 12 hours, then you're like, all right, we should probably figure out some provisions for moving forward. I'm in that like, oh, the power just went out. We're fine. I'm sure they'll get the grid back up here in a second. But Sunday is looming. Massive game for the Buckeyes. Massive game for Michigan.
It is
trying to win the Big Ten. Huge game for both teams. I think if Ohio State wins, we go from being on the right side of the bubble to not even on the bubble at all. I think we're just 100% in the tournament and we're good. Michigan wins, they continue to be in the driver's seat of for the Big Ten championship. That game's on CBS on Sunday, and I might not be able to watch it as of right now.
Yeah, that's bad.
And not only me, dude. I think a lot of people are YouTube TV.
Yeah,
Cody, you a YouTube TV guy? All right, so that kills my argument. The two guys in this room are not. So
I have seen people tweet about it though.
Maybe it's just a me problem, but. Dude, you can't do that. And the Masters coming up, they got to figure this out.
I got a Paramount app for you. I'll text it to you.
Okay, all right. I gotta might have to sail the high seas, as they say. Figure something out, dude. I guess CBS technically. This is where I go on this rant, and then someone's like, "Dude, all you got to do is just tie like aluminum foil behind your TV and point it."
Yeah, I think CBS is just like on an antenna.
Point it southwest, and make sure there's no interference, and you'll be able to watch the game. Yeah. Just do it that way. Yeah, dude. But I'm panicking. I'm in a tough spot with this. We got to get YouTube TV and CBS to figure out. All right. Before we go, tarred and feathered list. Big updates, dude. There are 28, 30 teams, something like that, crossed off between because we're getting to the point where the 9 losses for mid-majors and the 12 losses for power conference teams are starting to factor in.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're getting late in the season.
Yeah, that can officially just start crossing.
Well, that is one of the criteria. If you're not a power conference team and you have 9 or more losses, you're crossed off. If you are a power conference team and you have 12 or more, because again, no non-power team has had. You understand. I'm trying to explain it for the. No small school has had more than 9 losses, 9 or more losses, and won a national championship. No big schools had more than 12 losses and won 12 or more and won a national championship. So we're crossing all those off. There's 28 teams that I crossed off: Arizona State, Colorado State, Davidson, DePaul, George Washington, Iowa, Jacksonville, Loyola Chicago, Loyola Marymount, LSU, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Northern Iowa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma was multiple 3-game losing streaks. That was their criteria. I think they got smacked last night by Missouri. And they're on a 3-game losing streak. They're second of the year. Penn State and Pitt both have multiple 3-game losing streaks. Oklahoma State, Santa Clara, St. Bonaventure, St. Joseph, St. Louis, Temple, Texas, UAB, Virginia, Washington State, Western Kentucky, and Wichita State all get crossed off for various reasons. So we're down to like 55, 56, something like that.
Yeah, one thing we missed a couple shows ago, someone pointed out, Florida almost tar and feathered themselves.
Oh, I saw that.
That would have been.
Or no, because they almost lost.
They beat Tennessee
that's right.
by 30.
Yeah, they almost did. I had an eye on that. Yeah,
if they
that would have been wild, dude.
A tar and feather suicide.
Because one of the criteria is if you lose by 25 to a team that has already lost by 25 at some point this season, you're out.
You can't win.
Yeah,
that would have fucked us.
And Florida beat Tennessee by 30, right?
Yeah,
they beat them by
30.
And then Tennessee kind of blew out Florida. They did blow them out.
They beat them by 20.
They beat them by 20. That was dangerously close.
That would be the first time where we would actually be in some trouble.
Yeah. But Tennessee is not crossed out. Tennessee lost by 25. Losing by 25 does not cross you off.
They're just a poison team.
They're just a poison team that can.
So anyone Tennessee beats by 20.
So probably the best team that we've crossed off is probably still Missouri.
Yeah, the
I
one
would
that we
say.
did as a joke on
The
night
one I
one.
did the night one was the very first time we brought
They're
this up.
18th in Ken Palm.
I crossed off like every team in the SWAC plus Missouri because I just thought that would be funny.
Good way to start it
Now
off.
Missouri's hot, dude, and they're having a great season. Texas and Oklahoma might be the next best teams that we'd worry about. I'm not worried about Texas at all, though.
Mhm.
I'm really not worried about Oklahoma at all. Missouri, I'm still not worried about Missouri, but that's why you cross them off, though, dude, because it becomes funny. It's going to be like if Missouri makes the Sweet 16, that's interesting now, right?
Missouri right now is a 6th seed projected.
I don't think I'm ever crossing off. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where I'm like Arizona. You're getting crossed off, or Gonzaga. Should we do one more?
One more.
Do you
silly one?
you wanna get crazy?
I'll do a silly
I don't
one.
want to do it right now though. We'll do it. I want to do a stray bullet maybe next week.
All right.
Next week we got to do one stray bullet. Where it has to be like a top 25 Ken Palm team.
Dangerous.
We'll figure out a top 25 Ken Palm. It might just be Illinois, to be honest with you. I might do Illinois. I might do Illinois. Stay tuned. I'm not ready to pull the trigger yet, but it might be Illinois. Before we go, some shout outs real quick. Kansas State is hot. Kansas State is tearing through the Big 12 right now. Shout out to them. We shit on them when they got Coleman Hawkins and he wasn't playing great for them earlier in the year, and it hasn't been a great season in totality, but they have won. Should have wrote it down, but they just beat Arizona last night or Tuesday, and they just beaten Kansas too. Yeah, they've won now 6 in a row. West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas, and Arizona. They beat Iowa State, Arizona, and Kansas all in the last couple weeks.
That's a turnaround.
They're hot. They're very, very hot, and they were looking like they were going to bottom out, dude. They were 7-11, 1-6 in conference, and they're winning a lot of basketball games. Otherwise, big weekend in college basketball. Huge weekend in college basketball. Saturday we have the big one: Auburn at Alabama, 1 versus 2. These games don't come around very often. They're actually 1-1. I think Alabama's number 1 in the coaches poll.
Really?
And Auburn's number 1 in the AP poll. So. Yeah, a
That is
rivalry game. First time, obviously, it's ever happened in the history of these programs.
It's never happened in football either, which I think is crazy.
What?
This is
one
the
versus
Iron
two?
Bowl. No, it's the Iron Bowl.
Oh, this never
They've
happened.
Never had a
okay.
1 versus 2 Iron Bowl.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Yeah.
There's never been a 1-2 Iron Bowl. Yeah. This doesn't happen too often. It might happen again this year with Auburn, Alabama again next time they play, depending on how this game goes and the rest of the season goes. But yeah, we're getting a 1 versus 2 game on Saturday. That's the big one. Also, Houston going to Arizona. That's going to be a great game. Wisconsin's at Purdue. And Ohio State at Michigan's not nearly on the caliber of Alabama, Auburn, obviously, but that is a massive game, like we said, for both teams because Buckeyes trying to solidify their standing and Michigan trying to win the Big Ten. Good Michigan team. Good Michigan team. So fun weekend of college basketball. Are you going to the game?
I think so. I'm definitely going to Columbus for it. Working on tickets right now.
You're going to Columbus for the game?
I have a
You
wedding
might not go to
Saturday
the
night.
game?
I have a wedding Saturday night.
Okay,
and I
that
think
makes
I'm going to
sense.
stay
Yeah.
Sunday.
Okay. But the way you said it, it was like, yeah, I'm going for the game.
No, I'm sorry. Going Saturday.
I'm going for the game, but I might not go to the game. And I was like, why don't you just go to the game?
I'm a little. Can I say something?
What?
I'm a little nervous that I've gone to. So I went to Ann Arbor last year. Lost. I went to the football game this year. Lost. I'm a little nervous that such a big game I'm going to be there and I'm going to lose again.
Yeah. Was Jake's leaning into the rivalry part of all
He
this?
really is.
Really?
He said so because the
I don't know how I feel about that. The Michigan Ohio State basketball rivalry isn't like this is a big game this weekend because Michigan is good and this would be a good win for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the extra.
He said, I don't believe in minimizing this game and this rivalry in any way.
All right.
So he's not minimizing it.
All right. We'll see. I don't know. I'll let you know how I feel after the game. As to that approach.
If we beat them,
yeah,
this is fucking the
no.
game.
It's weird because like when I was playing when I was at Ohio State, Michigan wasn't very good at basketball. They weren't bad, but and then my senior year, last time we played was the Evan Turner in the Big Ten tournament hit the shot at the buzzer. That was like an awesome moment, obviously. But I'm gonna be completely honest. For 4 years, we were not, and it wasn't because we were trying to little brothers like son them. We were just like, you don't matter to us. Like they legitimately just were not good enough to. It was our rivals were Michigan State and like Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the two that were. So every time we played Michigan, there wasn't even. It was like we were playing It was the same as playing Iowa. Right?
Every
You know what
once
I mean?
in a while, though, you remind me that like you.
But then
just from you talking, you played in like the golden age of
yeah.
like you guys were so fucking good.
Yeah, but then obviously like Beeline got them really
Right.
going, and
They made the
then
title.
there was a pretty good rivalry there. Like the basketball, like the Mata Beeline golden, like the golden era of Mata was. I was there for a little bit, but the next part, the Jared Solinger, you know, like the 10s, the 2010s,
Burke,
early
yeah.
2010s, and then Trey Burke, who's a Columbus guy, like that was interesting.
And now it's
May
and Diebler.
now it's May and Diebler, two first
This
year
is
coaches,
the first
so.
of the war.
Yeah. Might be the last if Dusty May goes to Indiana. This might be it. All right. Great weekend of college basketball. We'll be back on Monday to break it all down. See you guys then. Or actually, we'll be back on Tuesday. We're not doing a show Monday. We have Monday off. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll be back on Tuesday to break it all down. See you guys then.